All right. Welcome, everybody. As you probably know, my name's Chad Corbett. I'm the founder and creator of Probate Mastery. This is part of our Ask the Expert series. Today, I'm here with Probate Cash, Mark Harris and Sean Driscoll. Welcome, guys. The reason we're doing this, I've known these gentlemen for a couple of years now. As you guys know, if you've taken Probate Mastery, you know that a big part of session 2 is really getting clear on your offer and building a team around you so you can work less, earn more, and do good in your community. And a part of that, a lot of people struggle with, they're intimidated by, and at first, getting that team built and who should be on it. So before we jump into this, I'll tell you why I have professionals like this. Like, I want to give access to professionals like this to you guys. If you've had Probate Mastery, you've heard the story about Pam. I think it's a good example of where, had I had these guys on my team 8 years ago, that story might have been a lot differently. But for any of you that haven't had the course or heard that, the deal that really made me commit to probate was a lady. She was in her late 50s. She called me frantic, crying, and the house that she was calling from was just down the street from the one I was renting. So I had moved to that neighborhood specifically from Maui. I chose that neighborhood in a town I didn't know. So it was where I wanted to live. Selfishly, I wanted the house for myself. When I showed up, looked this woman in the eye, and I started to hear her story, walk through the home. I'll try to rush through this, but I saw she needed cash and she needed it fast. Her father had passed away a few months later, the present time. Her mother had had a massive stroke the night before. She was in ICU. She was stable enough to be discharged into a rehab facility, but she didn't qualify for Medicaid, and they were looking for cash. So her daughter was stuck. She needed cash in a hurry, and all of her mom's net worth was in the house. That's a situation many families find themselves in. Most don't know what to do. A lot of times they end up dumping to an investor. What I did for the first time ever was I dropped the label of Chad the investor, Chad the realtor, and that day for the first time I was just Chad in the residential real estate space. So we walked through the home. I saw things of value. I saw about 10 grand worth of antique furniture that come to find out her father had hand built in the basement. We come back to the living room where I would normally say, I'll give you X number of dollars. And then if she couldn't, then I would try to switch to my brokerage hat and list it if I could. That hasn't worked that well for me. This time was different. So she needed the maximum amount of equity out of the estate. She needed cash as fast as she could get it. I chose the best route I knew at that time. I gave her 4 options. One was a cash offer. The next was an as-is sale. The next was selling the personal property, using that for a cosmetic rehab and selling it at retail. And the fourth, the one that got her out, was actually a creative financing strategy. And you'll see when I explain this, I had a list of tenant buyers who had applied for mortgages but did not qualify for small reasons. They had the mindset of homeowners. They wanted to be homeowners. They just couldn't clear that final underwriting bar and get financed. So I thought, I think I might be able to put something together here. So option 4 that I offered Pam was a lease with option to purchase with an $8,000 option fee, all the inspections and contingencies waived up front, a full retail sale price, no negotiation on price, firm price, and close it as fast as we could. And within 3 days, I had 4 buyers who were literally fighting over it. I turned 3 of them into conventional buyers. One was a really good fit. So we took an $8,000 option fee, the first month's rent, the last month's rent. We put about 11 grand in her pocket, which was able to get her mom out of the hospital and into a rehab facility. And then I closed it up as a lease with option to purchase. For me to teach you that would take hours. Like, for me to learn that took 6 months of trial and error and using all these different strategies and being able to be a transaction engineer on the spot and see that. I've found that is difficult to teach with people who have busy lives, and you've got a business that's moving in this direction. You don't have the time to stop and learn how to become a transaction engineer overnight. I need a solution now. That's why these guys are here. So I can teach you how to use creative financing strategies, how to turn your contractors into lenders, how to turn your investors into bridge loan lenders. But there is an easy button. And I have looked far and wide for companies that I could trust. We talk a lot about empathy and altruism and doing the right thing for your community here. When I went looking at the companies in this space, the majority of them I found kind of made my skin crawl, right? Like, it's guys that came out of a different world, a world of finance, and they could give 2 shits about the emotional end result. However, I've found Probate Cash to be different. We've had a relationship for a couple of years now, and I haven't had them on for a bit. So I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to understand where they could fit into your team, how they could help the families that you're serving. And just introduce them to you guys. It's the easy button. You can throw a bridge lender on your team. So guys, welcome. I'll let you can tell us a little bit about what you do, why you do it, and how that can apply to them.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks for having us on. We appreciate what Probate Mastery does for everyone. And I think you're right. We want to make things easy. So we're hopefully that easy button that you referenced. And it's also, of course, about helping our customer. And same with you, right? Well, I'm Mark Harris. I'm the CEO of Probate Cash. I'm an attorney by trade and still work as a lawyer to utilize my legal skills here at Probate Cash. My background before Probate Cash was looking at all kinds of annuities out there that people were stuck in. They were just flat out stuck in these annuities. They couldn't get rid of them. They were annuities that could be such as structured settlement payment rights that they received as a minor. They didn't have even the option to get a lump sum in a lawsuit, for instance, because they were mine. And the courts just decided, all right, I'm going to make this a monthly payment for you. And if you need more, sorry, you should have been infant when this occurred. We saw that marketplace, and for people who wanted to purchase a home or go to school, then they were only getting $1,000 a month out of their annuity, or even $5,000 a month out of their annuity. We could liquidate that. We would discount their future payment stream to present value and provide them with cash today. So that's one example of putting somebody in a better spot than they were. And there are laws on the books on how to do that. We make sure that structured settlement turns into in their best interest that they're going to use that lump sum responsibly. We also bought lottery prize payment streams. For some of your younger viewers that probably don't know that the lottery prize payments, if you want a big lottery prize, you had no choice but to take an annuity. So we would convert those into lump sums in a similar manner. We bought professional athlete contracts where those are paid over time. So anything paid over time. One issue we kept seeing were our customer base who really needed cash for immediate concerns. And the probate cash market seemed like a natural fit for us because our customer in these cases, similar to Pam sometimes, you have somebody who lost a loved one most of the time, of course, and that's why a probate case has to be open. And oftentimes the primary asset in the estate is the real property. There's usually very limited cash assets or even antiques. It's really just the house. Now, sometimes there are cash assets and that makes things easier, but the common person doesn't know that the probate process takes a long time. I think when people have this image of somebody passing away, they go to the reading of the will at some lawyer's office. The lawyer says, all right, I'm reading the will, and John gets the car and a couple of people get the home and someone gets a bank account here and there, and everybody leaves the attorney's office with a car key, a house key, and some money, and off they go. And of course, we all know that's not the case. Probate process, it can take money to hire a lawyer. It requires, in the best sense, probate can usually last upwards of about a year, oftentimes longer, especially if you're in a pandemic. So people need money. Why do people, they need access to their inheritance. And that's where we come in. So Probate Cash provides advances to beneficiaries who are waiting for the probate case to close so they can access their inheritance.
Let me interject there. Let's talk about some specific cases. So an obvious scenario, and one that we teach in the course, is oftentimes you can unlock hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of equity in property by putting in capital expenditures or repair, renovating the asset. But most families, they don't have liquidity. Like the average inheritance in the United States is $177,000. But the vast majority of that, 80% of those people own real estate, and 77% of that real estate's free and clear. Most people hold the majority of their personal net worth in that primary residence. So one use case is getting a home renovated to maximize equity and ultimately make the family more money. So that might come at a cost. Obviously, we'll talk about how Probate Cash makes money. They're a company, but the family can incur a cost because Probate Cash is taking a risk, but they can also wash that cost and exceed that cost by putting equity back in the property. So a very common one would be like a renovation loan. But what are other scenarios you guys see? Like, let's just say, what are your top 3 scenarios where why they need the money? Like, so people can start to connect with, how can I use this?
That makes sense. So number one is, okay, this house has been beaten up a little bit and we need to sell it. And in order to get fair market value, we need to $25,000 into the home. And we don't have $25,000. We need to, so that's one area. That's probably the top area where somebody comes in and says, we need to fix up our house so we can get it sold. Similarly, taxes still need to be paid on the home. And if the estate doesn't have a lot of cash assets, that we come in and we can literally save the home from either still foreclosure. If there's a mortgage, you still need to be paying the estate still needs to pay the mortgage.
Curious, like in that scenario, how many times are you the hero in the ticking clock of a reverse mortgage or a HECM loan?
Yeah, I mean, we are, I don't like to say we're necessarily the hero, but we're there to certainly ease those financial strains and make sure that the person's not going to lose the house. How important is that? Obviously, everybody here knows that the security of knowing that your house isn't going to be lost. And so we hope that we can help people sleep at night who didn't even know they had the option to do. And that's what's so important is, to let those folks going through probate that we're here, and certainly the realtors that they could be working with on their on the house that we're here, because I think it not just helps the homeowner, but it also helps the realtor take the time to properly list the home, properly market the home, so they're getting the best price for the owner, and of course, the most money for them as well as the realtor.
Something that, and we haven't talked about this, I'm assuming I'm going to make some assumptions here because just my experience in the space. One of the most common scenarios that I see stop a lot of people in their tracks is the kid that failed to launch. So they're 50 years old, they're living in the home, they freeloaded off of mom and dad their entire life. Brother and sister went out, made themselves very successful, live usually out of state or out of town, and Junior's still there. Everybody knows it's not in his best interest to live on his own in a house that he's, can't pay the taxes on, but he has nowhere else to live. And the family, like they're typical Americans, they live hand to mouth and they don't have a whole bunch of extra cash to pay for moving expenses, clean out, like all that. How often do you guys see that scenario? That's what we uncover those all the time. So it's not uncommon. If you've done 10 probate deals, you've probably found one of those where you've got a failure to launch situation. Do you guys find that that's a big part of like helping families get out of that situation by getting moving money and first month's limit rent, last month's rent, utility deposits? That seems like it would be a common application of your service too.
We do, and it's not just a problem for the family and for Junior to get out of the house, but we are going to require it because that house has to be sold in order for the probate to conclude. Again, that's going to be the primary asset. But Junior, not only is he living in the house, but we also know that Junior really can't afford to carry the house, and so getting an advance to cover the first month, or cover alternative living expenses to give Junior a head start will accelerate the probate case, accelerate the closing of the probate case. So then Junior will be able to get his inheritance and start to live his life outside of the house.
And what I'm proposing, guys, like a way that you could use probate cash in that scenario, give Junior his whole inheritance. Like he obviously needs it. The other people have more stable situations. So if I were in that position, what I would propose to brother and sister is, listen, guys, we just need a $15,000 advance, or well, not even that, 10 grand is all we need. So if each of you can give $5,000 of your position in the estate, then when the house is empty, then we'll actually be able to go in or let's go with 25,000. So we're going to give Junior 5,000. We're going to take 20 and do a cosmetic rehab. And then we're going to raise the ARV of the property by 75,000. Those numbers aren't that out of line. Like one of our members put $30,000 into a condo and got $180,000 price increase. Like that's how much it raised the ARV, like the net 180. So those aren't crazy numbers. Like if they were to, if two of the three heirs were to agree to a $25,000 advance, to like half the brother, half the sister, but then you add 80 to $100,000 in equity back in the property, what did it really cost them to hand their brother an extra $10,000 to better his life, to get in a better living situation? And then he gets his full inheritance. He's not penalized at all. He's getting the royal treatment. So that's ways that like where I see where this can be extremely useful. Now, so they can connect with how quickly that could happen and how it can serve them, our members in their business. If they're an investor, time is money. You need to get in there and renovate these houses. If you're a broker, you need to get in there and get it in as good a shape as possible, whether that's for renovations or just simply photography, staging, clean out, or deep clean. But talk about your structure, how these deals come together, like from the first point of contact with the family, what the process is, what that timeline is, and like what the legal structure is. And I think it's important to understand, guys, like this is a very, it's an advance. It's not a loan. It's an unsecured advance. Like they're taking a lot of risk here. And so it's important. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would say the most important thing for you guys is knowing that you're working with a certain class of professional who's introducing you to a certain class of customer. So you're there, that you're likely to be repaid. But let's talk about the process, like what it looks like, what a real estate professional could expect if they have one of these situations. Let's say right now, somebody they talked to yesterday, how fast can you actually deploy that capital?
As you've mentioned, as a tool, the probate cash is for realtors. What we feel like we're a tool that can be used by realtors, by lawyers, other professionals to also help themselves. So for realtors who are looking to list a property, to be able to come armed with folks who need money immediately, knowing that you can refer a potential beneficiary to us may help with the listing because we can provide them cash right away. So an example of how we end up in business. So oftentimes we get referrals from realtors and attorneys. Probate Cash is a sponsor of the bar section, state bar sections of real estate, property, trust law. So lawyers know to call us when their clients or other beneficiaries need money. So we get a phone call, let's say from a realtor saying that their client really needs money to fix up the house. So that they're waiting for their probate to close and the house needs about $25,000 of renovation so we can get fair market value. We get the phone call, we talk to the realtor or directly to the customer who would be getting the advance against that person's inheritance. We look at the case number that's filed in the probate court. We pull the probate case immediately. We have a large staff here that is familiar with the courthouse structures. I'm sure a lot of your folks are, and we're able to pull that probate case immediately and look at the assets in the probate case, look whether there's a will, not a will, and see where our potential customer lands as far as the inheritance. That review usually takes is done same day, 24 hours max. Courthouse, you got to send a runner. But we take a look at that and we will determine where in the probate process the case is. So it may have just been recently filed. There still may be, the claims period may not have started yet. Heck, there may not even be an executor named. The letters may not have been issued yet. That doesn't matter. We'll still make the advance.
Hold
And
on,
so
'cause that's really important. You're saying you will actually advance an estate before a petitioner is appointed as an administrator or executor.
we will do that. We like to talk to the probate attorney who still filed the case. We like to have as much color as possible. You know, it is a risky business and our advances are non-recourse. So if we don't get paid back when the assets of the estate are distributed at the end of the probate case, we do not pursue any legal remedies against our beneficiary that got the advance. They keep the money, absent fraud, of course, right? I mean, if they were stealing, that's a different story. Even if letters haven't been issued and there's a house out there that's, worth a few $100,000 and that house is going to be sold, we know at the end of the day, as long as the person we're dealing with is actually a beneficiary, either a specific devise in a will or is in the family tree if the decedent passed away intestate, we'll give an advance. Now, obviously, the earlier the stages and the less we know, our fees are going to be higher and we probably won't go, the amount of money may be determined based, the amount of money is often determined upon the value of the house, but we're also giving that advance without saying any claim. Y'all have all been involved in probate and know the instruments like the will can be challenged. Claims can be made by anyone from credit card companies to child support, to taxing agencies, medical companies, including even hospice and others. But that's our risk.
I want to underscore that, and I want you to understand these guys they're in the finance business, so we can put them in the way of risk where we wouldn't put one of our closest investor relationships or another family member or our contractor asking him to bridge a 90-day construction loan with a 10% premium. Once the letters are issued, the probate process has settled in, I'm comfortable doing that. I'm comfortable allowing my contractor to put a 10% premium on an invoice and to go record so the more time goes on, the more of that principal amount is eroded by the interest rate. So it's in their best interest to progress through the estate process, because the faster they get it closed out, then the less they paid for that advance. Is that right, Mark?
Yeah, that's right. And we also, with the advance, we do not want to advance against any beneficiary's entire inheritance. We always like our customer to have skin in the game, and to be called on to cooperate during each step of the probate process, of course. The other thing is you raise, which I find interesting, is conflict between beneficiaries, especially siblings. So my wife's a divorce attorney, and there's nothing like conflict there. But we also, I don't know if it's joking, but probate is kind of like the cousin of family law, where you're going to get quite a bit of disputes. So in probate, the one nice thing about our advances to the beneficiaries is our advances to one beneficiary does not in any way, shape, or form affect the inheritance rights of the other beneficiaries. So let's say that a beneficiary repayment amount, their assigned amount at the end of the day is $50,000, and they're only entitled to $35,000. We are, again, these are non-recourse. And so we're not pursuing legal remedies against the beneficiary for the shortfall of 15,000, nor are we going after any of the other beneficiaries of the estate either. So it's important as one beneficiary is getting the advance, and sometimes the other beneficiaries don't want their brother or sister to get the advance because they are concerned that could affect the estate being closed earlier, or even their share of their inheritance.
But
And that's just not.
even if they are the executor or executrix, they don't have the authority to prevent that, correct?
That's right. So even if the executor is our beneficiary also, and there's a shortfall, we do not go look to the other beneficiaries for repayment of that shortfall. Each beneficiary is entirely their own individual when it comes to these, with their own rights, and are not in the least bit affected by the advance decisions of the other beneficiaries.
So, Mark, as I've progressed through life, I've found there's value in the books you buy and the courses you take, and everybody talking about what they've done right. I think some of the most valuable lessons I've gathered over time, especially with more sophisticated individuals and companies, is learning from what they've done wrong. So if you're comfortable with it, I'd like to hear, just for the benefit of the audience, like, how do you know which one, like, what's a bad referral? Like, how do you sort out your own bad apples so you're not putting probate cash in the way of unnecessary risk? What's your horror story? What do you not,
How much time do you
what
got?
referrals will you not take from these guys?
Right. How much time do we have? We learn every day. Some of the lessons are more expensive than others. It's that mix of trying to help out our customers who are in need of money, and us also wanting to do business. As you said, we make money doing these deals. But where I find that where we lose money, where we lose the deals, is where when we don't have conversations with the probate lawyer at all. No conversation. And most of the probate lawyers, by the way, are all in favor of this, because it's helping the beneficiaries who are constantly calling that lawyer saying, when is this going to be done? Why hasn't this been completed? And so lawyers are referring beneficiaries to us all the time to just make the phone stop ringing. But when a lawyer doesn't contact us back or confirm some assets, And those assets end up not being there. We've gone ahead and made the advance against assets that simply aren't there. So sometimes, we're excited to get involved early, that sometimes we get involved a little too early, and a beneficiary says, oh, we've got money. Here are some bank statements, and and the inventory hasn't been filed yet. And that's an area that we get ourselves in trouble. Like everybody's business, fraud would be number one. We're pretty adept now at protecting ourselves from fraud. Second is just natural that is so one area we're looking at, the decedent have extensive health care prior to passing, because you got to look out for potential claims that are filed towards the end of the probate case that, y'all all know the cost of medical services, and it can just wipe out the entire estate sometime. So that's an area where we are at least learning to ask that question. Whereas when we first jumped on board, we said, okay, that's even post claims period, nothing's been filed and we're okay. But there are some entities that are permitted, of course, to file even post claims period. So we keep an eye on that as well.
Let's talk about the inverse of that. What is your ideal customer? Like, what is, I assume that there's probably like a value to the estate, like the assets, explain to the audience what would be the most exciting referral that you get.
Yeah. So that's great. An exciting referral is someone who's coming here, who's clear that they're a beneficiary. They have an interest, for instance, in the home. And I'm going to assume for the purposes of this call, this podcast, that there's not a lot of cash assets. Now, if there are a lot of cash assets, clearly $500,000, and in our case, $500,000 would qualify as a lot of assets for our folks. And that's an easy decision as long as we know that our customer is truly a beneficiary. Where it gets murky is the house. So we're making sure that that reverse mortgage. We cannot see inside the house when we're doing appraisals. So your group, if y'all are already have the listing, you're working on getting the listing, you can walk through that house and determine whether there are issues that make the value of that house significantly lower than the comps in that neighborhood. That's important. And that's important in really the amount of money that we're willing to advance. If we know a house has been selling for $750,000 and that's what the comps say, we also know that if that house is stripped and needs not $25,000 of work, but a couple of $100,000 of work, then that's a different animal altogether. So value of the house, condition of the house, we can jump all over that.
I'll give you an opportunity. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you wish I would have, or anything else that you think is important for everyone to understand?
I think, I know that your listeners are pretty sophisticated folks. And one line I may have already touched upon it, that not only are we here for our customers, for the beneficiaries, but we also are here for the professionals. And how can we help you guys, meaning realtors or other professionals, get business for you guys? How do you have other tools that you can sell yourself? There's a lot of you are probably familiar with pre-settlement funding, which will do some of that too, where there's advances against somebody's personal injury case. A typical plaintiff is going to go to a lawyer while they're suing the bus driver who hit them, and they say, well, I need money now. I got to pay my rent now. I got to pay my bills now. Well, it's not ethical for their lawyer to give them money. But if their lawyer can say, well, call these guys and you'll get 10 grand tomorrow, that's going to certainly increase the likelihood that they're going to sign that client. And likewise for realtors, that's going to increase the likelihood that you get that listing. So it's more tools, and we even advance law firms money too in that in situations like that. So it's not just beneficiaries. So you touch on creative financing, and that's what we've done. And probably our next business we probably haven't even thought of yet. Oftentimes we find our next business from folks who say, I have a problem. How do we do this? That problem's usually not isolated to that person.
Maybe it's probably in the metaverse, like when we all are avatars and we don't need physical bodies. Maybe you can start loaning on virtual estates. No risk there.
Apparently those are going for a fortune right now. I'm reading in Manhattan, virtual Manhattan. right? Virtual New York. That's
I own
hey,
I own a piece of land in the metaverse beside of Snoop Dogg's. Would you give me an advance on it? I'll give you the first position.
it's so noisy there. The virtual noise is killing me.
All right. Well, I got to wrap up, guys. Thank you so much for tolerating all my questions. How can everybody get a hold of you? You want to? We'll drop links, guys, in the show notes here. But what's the best way for them to begin the process? Where would they point their referrals to?
So first, we're Probate Cash, all one word, probatecash.com. My email address is Mark, MARC, at probatecash.com. And that's where you'll find this. My number, which I'll throw out here, my direct line is 310-734-9437. That's my cell number. My direct line, my office is 561-476-0018. Why do I give my cell number? We know the business today is 24/7, and when people need money, they need money. And that's our business, to respond and be there all the time. And you'll be talking directly to me, even though we have an office of about 40 people.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and for being available for our audience. I will say, guys, these guys are in Estate Professional Mastermind, our Facebook group that's open to the public. So if you have a need, you can also connect with them there. Sean, I know you're active in the group. We see you commenting and participating. So you can find them in our community, or you can find them, you can go direct to the CEO. Mark just gave you his contact info. So again, guys, thank you so much for your time and for being part of our community, and have a great day.
All right. Thanks, Chad. Thanks for having us.